Hello, fellow starseeds. So today, when I was actually yesterday, I was doing my meditations and just getting downloads about what we should podcast about. It's time to talk about Atlantis. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And this one, I have a lot of pictures to share while I talk so that you guys could actually visualize it at the same time. Um, I remember Atlantis very well. When I go into meditation, I'm often transported to what would, I guess, be called the ruins of Atlantis. I can still hear the frequency to open the portals to go in and out of Atlantis, and that's just the one section of it that's remaining, and I'll get into where that is. But everybody needs to understand that Atlantis was a system. It was not just a singular place. The entire earth was linked. We have evidence of this across the entire globe. If you look at ancient sites, they all have the same imagery. Ancient temples are all crafted in similar manners, and you can tell, and I'll get into some pictures where before Atlantis fell, um, you can see the structures, especially in like ancient Peru, where the structure on the bottom is very concise, very tight, and you can't even fit a piece of paper behind it. So, and then on top of it, you could see the difference between now there's like rock formations being stacked and built as walls, and that's the ancient Inca people. So I will go through different portals and different places and how this whole system worked, and some of the creatures that obviously still are on the earth today. It's just you have to have a connection to them, and you have to know how to work the portal system sometimes in order to see them, but sometimes there's rare sightings of them. So let's get into this because this is quite a lot of information. So, like I said, when I meditate, I often just go through the Atlantic Ocean, clear down through the Mid Atlantic Rift, which is where the remains of that system are. It is still active. There is still an active portal there. I still hear the frequency to go through that portal. It is a very high pitched ringing sound. Portals work off of frequencies, and people can also create portals for either negative reasons or positive reasons. So we'll get into portals as well. But here we go about Atlantis, guys. So actually, I'm going to get back to, I'm not even on the first page of this because I was just working on the slides as I was making this, getting ready to do this podcast. So here we go. Atlantis. This is like kind of a common image that you would see of Atlantis with the rings. And yes, it's talked about that through ancient philosophy. And like I said, this is just one part of it. And I chose this image because at the time that Atlantis was active on the earth was very pristine. There was a lot of nature. It was not polluted and ruined as it is today. So it did have a ring system. It was a functioning system that was linked with the entire world. So part of this was Atlantis, and the other part was Lemuria, which was underwater aquatic type of places and creatures that would live there. So this is the Mid Atlantic Rift, and I put kind of an arrow where the remains of Atlantis is. This is like the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean. So why is it down there? Well, I under everybody understand that I am not a Christian. I don't believe in Christianity, but the stories of the Bible are true in a sense that if they were never gutted and edited over and over and over again by man to suit man's purposes, then we would have the true history of things. So there actually was a great flood, and that did happen. And it wasn't just one guy with one boat that collected all of the animals of the world, meaning Moses in the Bible. There were a lot of people commissioned to do this throughout the world. And it's documented in other places of ancient times other than just the Bible. So for people to, it's hidden very well, and that is for a reason. So we'll get to that. So these are pictures of ley lines. If you're not familiar with ley lines, they link all of the power spots as well as the chakras of the earth together. It's just another picture of ley lines and how they work. So you could see right there in the middle a big power spot. So this is how the Atlantean system was linked. And everybody during this time knew how to use portals and travel to different places. Well, I can't say everybody. There were some beings, and I'll get to that, that use the portals that could be in many places at one time, because I always say in my podcast, just remember time is not linear. It does not past, present, future. It's all weaved together and happening all at the same time. So we would use the portals. There were humans involved in this system. And the reason that the flood came, and I've talked about this in my podcast when I talked about the Anunnaki. I got into deep history of the Anunnaki because I'm one of the original 7 members. And the reason that the flood happened and the knowledge was cut off is because it started to be used in the wrong way by humans. And I was a part of cutting off that knowledge. And then the world went dark. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But these are all very high electromagnetic spots throughout the earth. And this is also part of the Atlantean system. And you'll notice that a lot of ancient people built their sites over these power spots. They knew about them, they knew how to use them, they knew the power they can generate from them. There was free renewable energy, which we could have right now. Nikola Tesla proved it. And instead, we decided to go with the greed system, which is part of the reason Atlantis had to fall, because it's all of the knowledge started to be used for the wrong reasons, to have some gain and some not. And it was supposed to be a system of just abundance for everyone, fair for everyone. Everybody had enough, everybody got along. There was a lot of knowledge, a lot of growing for humans at this time. And these are the chakras of the earth. And some of them I have been to, some of them I have not been to. If I can't go to them physically, I astral project to them because part of my mission in this lifetime is to relink this system. And so I've been relinking ley lines and power spots and tapping into the ancient sites that either were built over top of the systems of Atlantis or are still there existing today. And this is just kind of so you can see different kinds of tombs, pyramids, things that are built all over the earth. Now, they might take a little bit different shape, but they're all designed in basically the same way. And these are very sacred sites, and there is a lot of healing that can be done within these pyramids. They are built on top of highly charged areas, and they are also a source of power, a source of energy for the ancient people. And then after the knowledge was cut off, then you start to get into people doing ritualistic things like you could hear about, especially more the Aztecs, like having human sacrifice and these kind of things, because they knew about the old ways and they knew that knowledge was gone, and so then they're trying to find ways to get back to that, or to have that knowledge, to have that power, to have that connection with the gods, whoever they wanted to characterize them as. So these are all over the world. There have been pyramids even found in Antarctica, in China, in America, and even North America, I'm talking about, in Alaska. And these are things in Europe as well. These are things that history and archaeologists don't like to get into because then it goes against the status quo. What's the status quo? It's the Bible. Like, we even measure our timelines on the so-called birth of Christ. So Jesus was a real person. He was a magical, powerful person that had amazing healing abilities. And he was part of this system. He was part of the Atlantean system. He lived for a very long time, and he tried to teach people the right way to do things. And then, tragically, the poor guy's story just got butchered. But here are some modern examples of some of these sites. So you've got Angkor Wat in Cambodia, obviously the pyramids in Giza, those are very well recognized. Temples in Mesoamerica, South America, Stonehenge, and Göbekli Tepe. So even monolithic sites were part of this system. They're built over power spots. And you could also see the rings around Stonehenge, and Göbekli Tepe is rings, rings, rings. There's a reason for that, and I'll get into that in just a second as well. So when Atlantis was up and functioning, obviously the earth was incredibly clean, full of nature, a lot of animals and sea creatures that aren't existing today, but some of them still are. So it was very, very beautiful, very serene. And I just chose a few pictures to bring up like how beautiful nature can be, because a lot of humans take nature definitely for granted. And we need to not be doing that. We need to do better by our planet. And so far, we are not. And so everybody starts to needs to start getting in on this fight of getting away from fossil fuels and having free renewable energy. If you even have an electric car, you're still participating in the pollution of the planet because you're plugging that car in to the very system that is polluting the planet. So we all need to get away from this. It is like we have gone past the tipping point, and the universal beings are, this planet needs to survive. And so everything is going to start shifting so that it does survive. So right now we are in the second age of Aquarius. If 2025 has started out as a very chaotic year, yes, it has. Be ready for more. Think about the first age of Aquarius, which was in the 60s, right? It was a time of great turbulence and great change around the world. People were waking up to older systems that do not work and do not serve us any good, and they were rebelling against those things. So when people start to rebel and start to be awakened to truths, there is a fight to be had. Does it need to get violent and bloody? No. But do these old players in this outdated system want to retain and absolutely do anything to maintain their power and their money? Yes, they do. There's a prime example of it all over the world. There are these super uber rich people that have more money than anybody even needs to freaking have. And if you just took three of those people and took half of their wealth, you could feed and house the entire world, and they would still have a ton of money. And that is not the way it's supposed to be. So we also get into the land of fairies. So I work with fae and fairies and elementals all the time, and they are still existing on Earth. Like I said, you just have to have the mindset to see them. You have to see them in the dimensions that they exist in because they exist in higher dimensions. Animals exist in higher dimensions than we do because they have true love and they don't willingly destroy their own environment. If you watch cats, for instance, cats see through many dimensions all at one time. That's why they're always staring off into things and looking at things and, the curiosity that they say cats have. All animals live in higher dimensions than people do. So we get into the land of the fairies. And obviously, this is a fairy image that, best representation that I can think of. But there was also mer people, and they were obviously part of the Lemurian system of this. And every once in a while, somebody will spot a mer people, and they can be different sizes as well. They're not all human sized, some of them are very small. Whales are part of this system, and there's a lot of animals that are listed as spirit animals for a reason. Elephants, horses, there's a lot of them, but all animals definitely exist in higher dimensions than people. So if you're lucky enough to be able to communicate with fairies and the mer people, you're very blessed because you're very connected to nature. You love to get out into nature. Nature calms you, nature soothes you. You can hear nature. I can hear the trees singing to me. I can hear the water talking to me. I can see the sprites. I carry sprites with me actually. I could see the the MERS people and the fairies when I get into certain parts of a forest or lake, river, stream, the ocean. So once you start ascending and you are going up through dimensions, the more you're going to see and the more you're going to be able to interact with. So they're still existing here. But obviously, during the time of Atlantis, everybody was interconnected and knew about these things and communicated with these different creatures in different realms and could go to different realms and were of a higher mind and a higher ascension, even humans. So these are representations of elementals, best I could find. I normally pick females just because I don't know. I'm very sacred feminine, so even my artwork is mostly like sacred feminine type paintings and things like that. I very rarely draw or paint males unless they're like tribal and understand these systems and how they work. And we also have like what we would call dwarves, things like that. Elves, those are part of fairyland. Like all of these things these stories just didn't come from nowhere. They came because they actually existed. And then, of course, stories get changed over time, over time, over time, and then they become fairy tales, and then you're told they're not real, but they are real. And there's a saying, and it's more on like the elemental side, the dwarf side, the fairy side. Never, it's, they say it a lot in Ireland, never build your house in the path of the fairies. If you build your house on fairy land, it will have nothing but bad luck and just chaos, and you will end up leaving that home because that land is not meant to be built on. It is meant to be lived on and experienced, but it is not meant to have a modern dwelling place on it. So you can research those kind of stories on your own if you want. But elementals are definitely a part of the Atlantean system. Dragons are as well. I know people, when I do Akashic record readings, um, either fairies or mer people, elementals, or houses of dragons will come up in some of their Akashic record readings. So, dragons travel in and out of portals. And so, in Asian cultures, you'll see more of the mythology of dragons and dragon kings and houses of the dragons. But dragons are very much part of the Atlantean system and they travel in and out of portals. So, if you are able to reach those higher dimensions as you go through this process, you'll be able to interact with the dragons. If you have dragon ancestry, you will be able to interact with the dragons. They are a protective source, they are a knowledge source, and they're definitely not like these crazy beasts that movies have been in, like played them out to be, but they will defend things if they have to. And we get into spirals. So I'm bringing up spirals because these represent portals. This is humankind's way of saying there is a portal, and they're all over the world, everywhere, all over the world. And that is just humans drawing a portal. So, one, if you ever see a big enough spiral that you can actually walk it, you should walk it because they're very clearing. So it doesn't necessarily mean there was a portal right there where that spiral is drawn. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not, but people are saying I am aware of portals and so I am depicting it in art and this is where we're putting our art. But if it's on the ground and you can actually walk a spiral, it is very cleansing. So as you walk the spiral and you start at the center and then come out the other side, you need to think about the things in your life that you need to clear. And by the time you get out of the spiral, like walk as slow as you need to. Sit down in the spiral, meditate in there for a while, however long it takes. And then when you come out the other side, you should feel cleansed. You should feel cleared. These are just some more examples of spirals. Spirals are always in nature as well. And then you also have the shape of the Fibonacci spiral, which Nikola Tesla talked a lot about. And it's part of the 369 and how you can manifest through the numbers 3, 6, and 9. So I've done a whole nother podcast about that. So I'm not going to get into that too much here, but this is the Fibonacci spiral. And it's interesting that Africa takes this shape because Africa has the oldest, deepest history of humans that have been found so far on the face of the planet, according to historians and archaeologists. So, Africa, although it is very much neglected in the modern world, was a very beautiful, vibrant, gorgeous place in the Atlantean system. And there's a reason why Africa has so many animals because it was full of nature, stocked full of nature. So there is Africa. And another part of the Atlantean system is the Grand Canyon. If you have not heard the story that the Grand Canyon is the library of the earth, it is the library of the earth. Now you're hearing it. So there are secret places in the Grand Canyon. You can see here, like these are some native type dwellings, but there are a ton of secret places in the Grand Canyon. There are a ton of portals within the Grand Canyon. There is a reason why a lot of people go missing in the Grand Canyon, and it's not just because of the vastness of the place. And there's a reason why people have found certain places, caves and things like this, that they go in and there's things from other parts of the world and they come back out and they mean to go back to excavate these things, bring these things out, like get rich off of them or whatever their intentions are, but they can never find the place again because they walked through a portal. There are tons of portals within the Grand Canyon. The Native Americans know it, and that is why it is very sacred to them. And the Grand Canyon is called the library because within all of these portals and places is stored a lot of this knowledge from the Atlantean times. And this is a portal in Peru. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. And I actually, ooh, there it is. Sorry. I actually walked through this portal in my ancient life during Atlantean times many, many, many times. So if you know the right frequency, this portal is still open, it is still active. But like I said, portals work by frequency. So if you don't know the frequency and you can't resonate with that frequency, you're not going to get it to open. So that's how people mistakenly walk through portals is they're resonating at that frequency and it opens. But if you don't know that you're putting off that frequency and you don't know how to actually project it and tune in with it, then it's like a one time thing. I've walked through a portal, but then you don't know how to do it again. So either you disappear and you can't get back through, or you get back through and then you can't find that place again. Other examples of portals. So these types of doorways, you see these a lot in Egypt, you see them in ancient Ireland, Scotland, a lot of hinges, obviously, in England and Europe and different places like that. Volcanoes. I just chose a basic image so that you guys could tell this was a volcano. So, anytime I've been camping near a volcano, like Mount Shasta is the root chakra of the earth, there are a ton of vortices and portals around Mount Shasta. People go missing there all the time as well. And when they do, it's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle experience. It's like I've lost time. I came out and like where am I? I encountered these other beings. I was taken to another world that in within the volcano and they have all these stories or once again they disappear and nobody sees them again. Now, I'm not saying everybody that disappears out in nature has been sucked up through a portal because nature is vast and there are tons of ways to get hurt and that people cannot find you in the remote wilderness and if you're not careful out there you could just disappear out of like something tragic happened to you. But some people do disappear into portals and we don't see them again. But when I've camped near Mount Shasta and Mount Everest, I can feel all of these portals. I've hiked up, I've made contact with these portals, and I can astral project really easily, so I don't have that fear when something like that happens to me. And I just need to listen to the frequency of what that portal is putting off in order to be able to work it. So here's an example. This is in Peru, but you can see how the architecture is different, how these stones up at the top are very fitted together. You can't even fit a piece of paper between them. Very different architecture. And then, like the Inca people, these are their stone walls. So they still knew that this was a power spot. They still knew that this was part of the Atlantean system or, you know, the power and the energy and electromagnetic field going on there. They knew it. And so they just built on top of the old site. Now, this, of course, happens a lot within Christian history. So during Roman times, a lot happened during that time. And when the Spanish were like conquering South America, they would just topple whatever structure was there by whoever built it and then build a cathedral on top of it. So a lot of those old cathedrals and things that were built by either Romans or conquering Spanish or English people, there are ancient sites under those cathedrals. And that's a tragic part of history. So, and then we're going to get into some of the beings that are associated with Atlantis. And Arcturians, the universal beings, Arcturians, are very much a part of the Atlantean system. So within the Octarian star, there is a portal, and this is where energies go to either exit Earth when you die or make a new soul contract and come back to Earth. And Octarians are like basically the original keepers of the Akashic records. So when you go into the Akashic records, you go in and talk to the masters of the Akashic records. So I don't interact with actual Octarians while I'm in the Akashic records. I work with the keepers of them, but Octarians still have a big part to play in the energies that are on Earth. And when people die, you go back through this portal. And then our loved ones and guides and all of these things can just come back through the portal as energy and not reincarnate and be with us if that is their duty to do so. But if it's time for them to reincarnate, they make a new soul contract and they come back to Earth through that soul contract. And it's not necessarily humans. People make, or other universal beings, other energies make soul contracts. You have, for instance, the ant people that the Hopi say that they descended from. They say they came from under the ground. That's where the ant people live. And it's been scientifically proven that the Hopis are not genetically tied to any other race on Earth, like a pure Hopi Native American. So that is their truth. Literally, they come from the ant people. There is a ton of ways to make life in the universe. My part to play in this whole story is, and you could see it in other podcasts that I've done about the Anunnaki. I was a member of the Anunnaki, and we had a huge part to play in human development and getting humans to a state of intelligence and being able to rise in ascension and through dimensions and having all of this knowledge. And also involved in the Atlantean system are Andromedans. And it's because there is literally and I am the link between the two. In my Akashic records, in my tree of life, of all of the places I have been, I am from Andromeda Galaxy, and then I have lived other lifetimes within the universe with it being other universal races, which I'm in contact with them as well all the time. But I'm the link between Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way Galaxy. So when I'm going around repairing all of these ley lines and power spots, I'm linking them back to Andromeda. So there is a portal between the two galaxies, and that portal has been repaired, and ley lines are being linked back to it, and that is part of my work. And there's a lot of other people on Earth that are doing work with ley lines and power spots as well. So it's not just me, but life in our galaxy started in Andromeda Galaxy. And then beings, universal beings, and all of these things started coming into this galaxy, making life, creating life, and forming the galaxy, forming the planets, all of these things. So that is the role that Andromedans have to play in this. And my role, this was my life in the Anunnaki, which I once again, I've already done that podcast, so I'm not going to get into it a lot. I was Kai, and I had a huge part to play in developing this planet. And I was also the one that cut off the knowledge. I was not the one that caused the flood. That was a different member of the Anunnaki. Um, so Enlil caused the flood, and he has a huge part to play in the Atlantean system because we got humans to the point, like, if you look at this slide, we got, and I hate this slide because I don't like this, like, vertical, like, oh, and then man could walk and then it was Homo sapiens. That's not the way it works. Homo sapiens tree of life looks just like any other family tree where it's like this big tree and sprouting, and these people ones intermingled with these ones, and Neanderthals intermingled with Homo sapiens, and like it was all just this big intermingling. But once they got to a point of Homo sapiens rising above and having this intelligence and being able to ascend and understand dimensions, then they were quite guarded by Enlil. And that's what they call the Garden of Eden. But they needed to have their freedom to make choices and learn in this world and within this system. So I talked about that in my story of the Anunnaki. um, Inky basically busted in, and their guards were a form of universal being that has basically gone rogue and very dark at this point. But they were the guards to try to keep these humans like pure and safe. And Inky came in, and there was like some bribery going on, things like that. And the humans were given the knowledge, and then they became a part of the Atlantean system. And it worked just fine for a very long time. But once the humans had the knowledge, I'm going to unshare now since I went through my picture, long list of pictures. Once the humans had the knowledge, humans are descended from apes. Like chimpanzees are our closest relative. If you look at their societies and how they function, there's a lot of violence in there. There's a lot of greed, even within apes, um, a lot of jealousy, a lot of rivalry. So this was in humans. And once they were set free to make their own decisions and to learn and have the knowledge, like I said, it worked really well for a really long time. And there was interbreeding between humans and the Anunnaki and other universal beings, and this whole and the whole entire world was connected. The people that lived in South America parts knew about people that lived in Egypt, and vice versa. Like the entire world was connected by this knowledge. People could travel through portals. Beings could travel through portals as long as you had the knowledge and the frequency to do so. But there is those stories of the Anunnaki made a slave race because they needed gold. That slave race, when I'm going through my own history and Akashic records, is what we would call Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, blah, 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 all the names that they have all around the world. And it wasn't, you can't think of it as slavery, as in what has happened in Earth and these lifetimes of slavery. They were like made and created yes, to get gold, but it was monatomic gold, which I use on a daily basis in my life. It is also a superconductor, it is a cell repairer, it helps you sleep, it can heal you. It has a lot of things that it can do, but it was also very important for universal beings' ships and crafts, and it was also very important for the Anunnaki for the same reason. So that is what they were mining. And it might have become monotonous to them, but they were not abused or mistreated in the ways that you think the word slavery today, and just brutalized and absolutely tortured and horrendous, awful things that honestly, I don't know how somebody as a human could treat anything like that and still look at themselves in the mirror and feel good about themselves. Like those people obviously live miserable lives. You cannot treat somebody or something with such hatred and expect to feel peace in your life. That just absolutely cannot happen. Just like you absolutely cannot put a curse on somebody or something and expect to be and live a peaceful life. It's just not going to happen. So, that out of the way. Um, so, once humans decided, oh, this is gold, it never tarnishes. It's like the super metal, and they had all this knowledge of gold, and not just in the monatomic form, but in the gold form that we like think of gold today. Then of course they started using it for greed, and they also started abusing the knowledge that they had of the universe, of how things work within the universe, how you can manifest anything you want for yourself, how you could travel through dimensions, and all of this knowledge that is finally coming back to people. That is why the Akashic records have been opened now at this time in life, because people are ascending. We can handle this knowledge. We know it's there. We've known it our entire lives, like these newer generations of people. And like I said, it started in the 60s. People were like, I don't want to get married and have this house with the picket fence and have kids and have this job that I have to go to and slave away at every day and then come home and then repeat and come home and repeat, and destroying the universe and destroying our earth. And like if you look at pictures of our earth now and what is around our planet, it is surrounded by so much freaking space junk. It's just as polluted as our own freaking planet. It's disgusting. So it was used, the knowledge was used to do bad things and take it in the wrong direction. And then it started to get out of control. And so the Great Flood came, Atlantis sunk, Lemuria sunk, and the knowledge was literally cut off. So those portals to the universe and all of that knowledge was like chink, cut off by me. And then the world went dark. So I know from just in communication with different universal beings, and there is a galactic federation that they don't want that to happen to Earth again. So even though we are absolutely destroying this planet, they don't want it to go dark again. They want to have humans remain in the light and give us the knowledge and have us ascend and be able to reach higher dimensions and higher vibrations and be a part of that collective consciousness with them. in peace and love and harmony and utopian, and there is enough for everybody and no violence and all of these things. And so once you start to raise yourself, you're in that collective consciousness, not even just with the people on earth, but with the universe itself, because it is a living thing, just like the earth is a living thing, and with all of the universal beings that exist out there, except for a group that is very destructive and on the negative side. And they are responsible for keeping everybody in Earth in this 3D state of mind and in these power systems, in these greed systems, in this pollution system. They're the ones that are behind that. So it went from them guarding humans to try to keep them safe and let them like thrive and multiply to now we've got power and we're going to take that power. And they've caused a lot of wars within the universe with that power. And it's Mars and Venus were destroyed by nuclear war. Other star systems were destroyed by war. And so basically, that's why you always associate universal beings with spacecraft. So some of them still live within their star systems, but they still have spacecraft. Some of them have spacecraft because they had to become nomads because their either planets or star systems were destroyed by the Draconians. So the Draconians have held this world hostage for a very, very, very long time. And what I got when I went into meditation was very specific to people I need to understand that this Atlantean system will rise again. That is the goal. And that is the goal of having people have knowledge and ascend and get into higher vibrations and get out of these old systems. I can still hear it, I can still feel it. When I go into deep meditation, I am transported there. I could still hear the frequency. I could still go into it. It is still a part of me. And this last meditation that I had as I go like plunging down through the ocean into the rift and then to the remnants of this system, I can hear the frequency. Um, a part of it was shoved into my heart chakra, and it will rise again. It will be again. So it it won't necessarily be exactly the way that it was because there's a lot of things that need to happen on earth and a lot of cleanup and a lot of things that need to happen, so it won't necessarily look the same, but it will rise again. And that is the goal of the universal beings, especially the goal of the Galactic Federation. It's the goal for people like me and other people that I know that you've just known your entire life that you're different and you're meant for something big on this earth. And no matter how you were raised or what society told you was the norm, you've never gone along with that. You've known that something is different. And then once you start to get this knowledge and you start to get into quiet places where you can listen, because the universe is very quiet, Earth is very loud. So you need to be able to meditate. You need to be able to quiet your mind, however that happens for you. And once you start to ascend and go to higher and higher dimensions and have contact with these beings, and you get your Akashic records read, and you learn your universal DNA story. You learn your DNA story through past lives on Earth if you've had them. Then you also get to understand what your mission is here on Earth. And so that is my mission, is part of the group of people that's restoring this system and saving the planet. I know other people that are doing the same things, they just do it in different ways than I do. I know people that are here to save the ecosystem and restore it. I know people that are also working on ley lines and power spots and getting downloads of codes and different things like that. I know the librarian of the Grand Canyon. Like, there are, you need to, that's why I keep telling people all the time why it's so important to get your Akashic records read. So either get certified and learn how to do it yourself, which I have a class on Udemy if you want to take it, or get them read by somebody else, which I do them. There's many other people that do them, so that you understand your purpose on this earth. Every single human has a purpose on this earth to save it. Every single person on this earth is important. And you need to know that. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, how much money you have. None of that matters. Every single person is important. And just keep preparing yourself for a lot of changes. And with that change is going to be disruptions to your life, to a lot of people's lives. Earth is also fighting back with all of these natural disasters that are happening. Now, the fires in California, that's a whole nother thing. Those were created by men doing nasty things. But there are a lot of natural disasters happening. Earth is fighting back as well. The universal beings are in this fight as well. So learn your path and learn your mission and know how important you are. So if you always had that feeling of, I was born different, I think different than other people, there are people that just want to go along with this 3D world and just, this is what you do. You get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat, you go to sleep. You get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat, you go to sleep. And their life doesn't really hold any joy, or they feel like they're stuck in poverty and all of these different things that happen to people. Just know yourself and feel yourself. And if you feel that that path is within you and you feel that you are different, you have an obligation to yourself to find out why. And then once you go on this path, you'll find that you're not just an empath, you're not just a psychic. You have a ton of other gifts as well. And they start to open up for you more and more and more. And this is all part of the Atlantean system. Everybody had these gifts. And so just keep yourself to yourself. Don't let anybody take yourself from you, for one. Start listening to the universe, start listening to nature, start understanding how much help the earth needs, and start participating in it. Literally, I'm debating finding an environmental attorneys that are willing to take on our federal government and the military industrial complex for completely polluting and trashing at least our country, but then the rest of the world started participating in this as well, because every single human, as far as I'm concerned, has the right to sue over that, because we could have had free, renewable, clean, pristine energy this entire time, and there is abundance for everyone, but the system took over. So I want to change that. I was born in the 70s. I'm an indigo child. I might get under things and ruffle people's feathers and like piss people off kind of person. So keep loving your hearts, everybody. Keep positive during all of these changes that are happening. This is the next age of Aquarius. They are going to keep happening, and understand that it's for your benefit, it's for the benefit of the earth, and just be present in it. Stay in the present moment and find that true happiness no matter what it takes you. So stay lovely out there, people. Stay good to yourselves. Understand that the Atlantean system is meant to come about again on this earth. We are meant to have peace and tranquility and not have this greed system, and it's coming. So have faith in that, be a part of that collective consciousness that outwins and outbeats, smarts this power system that has been going on. That power system is very loud, and this collective consciousness is quiet because, one, we can communicate telepathically, we do everything psychically, energetically, with energy, and so it's quiet, but it is massive. It's massive. So have faith in that, everybody. So keep loving each other, and I will see you guys next podcast. Bye bye for today.